Okay, hello again. And in this video, we are going to be doing a digital painting. And I wanted to show you this. Basically, I have a background. I have my original photo that I was using. And I'm basing my painting on this photo. Then here I'm going to turn on this eyeball. And this is where I'm painting. And you can see that I have a combination of light and dark values already going. And then also above it, I have a black and white version of this photo down here. And I can bring up the opacity or bring it down so I can see what I'm working on along with the picture and get the values here as best I can. So that's basically what we're going to be doing for this project. So let me show you how to set it up and how I might approach getting started on this. I'm doing all of my inking, if you will, on one layer, but you can do the different features of your picture that you're drawing, doesn't matter what it is, on each of its own individual layers if you prefer. That might be easier, especially when it comes to doing light and dark values here. I did make some errors in terms of I started doing the dark eyelashes, and then I'm also going to have to do some lines through here. So I probably should have done the lighter values first. Same principles would apply in art using oils or pastels or waters. You put the light values on, then the dark values after that. It makes it a little bit easier. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there. So let me show you how to get this set up. So I'm going to do a new file here, Control N. And our file size is going to be 720 by 540 here. So click OK. And there's our canvas. I'll just leave it a black background right now. And the next thing we want to do is bring in our picture. So now I got this picture again off of Pixabay, which basically you can use the photographs that people put on there. And so going in here, I'm just going to grab it. And this photo is probably bigger than 720 by 540. So I'm just going to grab it and drop it in. And sure enough, it's a pretty good size photo, right? So one way we can scale that easily is just to grab our scale tool here. Click inside here. And notice here that this window also comes up. Now you could grab the handles like we've been doing, or the easier way would be to just punch in your numbers here, 720 by 540. And notice that it's already changing. Click scale, and it scales it down. So now all I have to do is grab my move tool up on the toolbar and move this thing into position. And there you go. Now the photo's the size I want. It takes up the canvas. The other thing I want to do is I want to create a new layer that I'm going to be painting on. So going down here to the bottom of my layer window, I'm going to select create a new layer, but I'm going to hold down shift when I do it. And that way it just creates the layer automatically. I don't have that extra step I have to say okay to. So there's my layer that I'm going to paint on. Now again, you could do several layers. It might be easier that way. I don't know. I'm just going to do it all on one layer. And then the other thing I want to do is duplicate this layer here of the woman here. And I'm going to take that and, well, I'm just going to click on it to select it. And then I'm going to go down here to create a duplicate of the layer. So I duplicate that now. And this one I'm going to bring above my blank layer. So I have the color picture here, a blank layer, and then the color picture here. But on this one, you can leave it color if you want, or you can take out the color and make it black and white, which is what I prefer to do, because I'm not going to use these same colors. The idea is to take an image and sort of adapt it into your own way and use your own colors that you see fit. So I'm going to take this one now and go up to colors. Actually, let me move this window over a little bit. Choose colors, hue, saturation, and just pull out the saturation in that. I'm not going to worry about changing contrast or anything like that. So here's the initial setup of my document. And so I've got the black and white image above my blank layer. I still have the color image if I need to look at it. But where I'm going to be doing most of my colorization is on the blank layer. So probably the first thing I'd want to do is think about what color do I want her covering to be. So the original photo, the color is kind of a violet, I guess. So I'm going to change that and just make it maybe like a light blue, for example. So I'm going to start with a different color on her covering there. So at this point, I'm just going to grab a brush to get a solid color. And here's one that I made. Or no, not that one. This one's one I made. I call it glowing. So I'm just going to grab glowing and fill in this area around her face. So I'm going to grab the magnifying glass, and now I'm going to grab my brush, and to get that color I'm just going to click in the foreground color and just choose one that I think would be a good start. That's a pretty color right there. So I'm going to click OK, grab my brush, and make sure you're on the correct layer over here in the layers window, and then I can just start painting here. Let's bring the opacity down on her right here on the black and white and just start filling this in. So again, you're starting with some base values, and then you'll do the fancy work over that. But that's kind of the idea here, is to... Now notice here too, if I turn this off, if I go down here, this is 100%. This one should be... let's do this. Let's put the background above our color layer so we can see a little better how our paint's going. Now there it looks kind of transparent. It's a soft brush for sure. So I can go up here to the brushes in my brush window up here, double click on my brush if it's this brush editor isn't up, and it's probably going to be over here anchored to this. I just basically took it off of this window over here by clicking up here and detaching the tab, choosing detach tab. Then you can move around things around, windows around the way you want. Here I can bring up the hardness and just color a lot faster. And notice there it's filling in better. I'm just trying to get a base color to start here. And notice there it's really starting to cover. And look at here, I did this on the background. That's a big no-no, right? So you got to make sure you're on the correct layer. So Control Z will undo that. Again, let's move the background layer up above the color layer. And let's go ahead and make sure we're on this blank layer. Excuse me, blank layer. So again, if you make a mistake, Control Z will be your best friend. And just fill in the pertinent base colors that you're going to use. Again, I'm not worried too much about detail other than just getting close to the edges. I'm going to do the fine tuning later. Okay. Every once in a while I'll stop and turn off the top layer to look at my progress. Oops. But then don't forget to switch back to your blank layer and then fill in what I missed. Okay, now I'll turn this back on and I can keep going here. Again, I just want to get a basic shape of where we're going to be adding our color and adding our magic to the overall composition. Okay, so we're just making a little progress here. Again, starting with the basic colors that I'm going to be working with. And you'll find that this kind of assignment is very rewarding when you finish with it, but it's very time consuming the way we do this. But this is a great project to get you practicing using your brushes. Something you're going to want to have in your arsenal of tools when you're creating your digital art. Okay, so far we're getting there. So we're getting our base color there. Now, of course, when you get into the edges there, you may want to be careful. You can zoom in on it, maybe reduce the brush size. That helps. It seems to help me, and increase the hardness a little bit. So again, even though you created these brushes, remember you're always going to be making adjustments right here as well. Let's go back up a little bit. Make sure your brush is selected. And again, just double check the layers window to make sure you're on the right layer. Select our brush. And just try to get the edges here as best I can. And again, I'm not going to do the fine tuning until I get my other colors added. But you can see here that having that image underneath really does help when it comes to getting the trim and the edges. Okay, so you can go around and get close to the edges here. Again, I'm going to go back over this, of course. I'm not going to spend too much time doing the edge work yet. Okay, and then you bring this up here. You just get close because you can use these colors again to tighten things up. Okay, so turning that off, you can see I'm getting really close there. Other things now I want to do maybe is color the inside. And looking at her skin tone, I see some orange in there. I see some peach. So it might be good to start with a base tone on her skin here if you want to match that. Again, grab your color picker tool, make sure you're on the color layer, and select an area that you think might be a good area to start with as a flesh color. You know, something with a little orange in it or peach. That's kind of a nice color there. So now I'll turn back on these layers. One thing I can do here is I can take this background layer and I can duplicate it. Just go down here, create a duplicate of this layer, and we can just change this background layer to that color. Okay, so we can start with that. So I'm going to grab my paint can and fill that in. You can see there I've got that base color there, and that kind of speeds things up for your core colors. And now I can go back to this layer, grab my color picker tool, and grab that color again and fine tune. Okay, so now this is where it's going to get tedious. I'm going to go ahead and try to fine tune this edge to get as close to the edge as it is in the original photograph. And again, I merely just have the top black and white layer is set to about 42% opacity, but I'm painting on the layer underneath it to match that edge. I'm not worried about any fine details. That's where you're going to use your ready-made brushes when we get into the really fine detail. Okay, so basically how we're starting it out is you want to find a photograph that you can either study or bring into GIMP here. And then you're going to basically paint it. You're going to do a painting of a photograph, but you're going to adapt it in your own way. You're going to make your own colors. You may even add your own filters eventually to it. And so we're starting with just some base light colors, and then we're going to add on to it from there. And that's basically how you get started on this project.